Welcome everybody to Drum Education Live, episode 83. And today we have Joel Rothman with us.
Wow, let me clap also.
If anyone watching doesn't want to miss an episode, then you need to subscribe and share so other people can find us too. Thank you so much for accepting our invitation. I'm so excited to talk to you.
Yeah, it's a pleasure to be here.
I want to talk about how you got into drums and how they entered your life.
How they entered my life, right. Well, I was a young kid and past the store. I saw a drum set in the window, a used drum set. I used to tap dance when I was 5 and 4, what have you. And when I was with my parents, I had them buy the set, and that was it. In the window. I didn't know anything. I mean, I came home, banged like crazy on the drum like any kid would do. I had no idea what I was doing. But then there was a teacher in that store, in the music shop, named Billy Machetto. And I remember that lessons were $3 a lesson. And he was a very good teacher. I was just very lucky, and that's how it all began. Yes.
Cool. And did you have many teachers, or you only had him as a teacher?
Oh,
and then that was
no.
it?
I had many teachers. I mean, over the years, I went to every well-known teacher in New York as I got older. I went to, I don't know if you know the name Ed Shaughnessey.
Yeah.
Yeah, there was Jim Chapin, Ed Shaughnessey, oh God, Saul Goodman for classical music, and Jimmy Navarro, who was a Latin specialist, and just everyone in town who was known. And one of the best teachers I had was somebody that nobody knew. He was only about 36 years old when he died.
Wow.
Very unfortunate. A very, very good jazz drummer. His name was Maurice Marks. And actually, I mean, nobody knew of him or anything like that. He didn't have a name. He played around town a lot, but he was one of the best teachers that I had. I also, let me see, what was Jim Chapin, and my goodness, the names escape me, sorry.
What made him such a good teacher, the guy you were talking about?
Well, he was very organized, very clear and very organized. A lot of the teachers that I went to, okay, what would you like to learn today? They didn't really have a method in particular. They kind of just winged it. If you come in and, at least that's what I found. The first teacher was also, he was very good because he kind of had a method and started off understanding what to do. But a lot of the great players, you could be a great player, doesn't mean you're a great teacher. And you could be a great teacher and quite a mediocre player, I think. So I was lucky that I had a couple of those teachers who were very good. And of course, you have to go to the right teacher at the right time in your life. Somebody could be very good for you if you're there, and not so good if you haven't gone to them at the right time somehow or other. If you go to somebody who's quite advanced and that's what they've been doing and know how to do that, and you're not quite as advanced, well, maybe that wouldn't be the best teacher for you. And then, of course, I had a bunch of piano teachers, xylophone teachers, just on the different instruments. So I went through a few piano teachers, I have to say. One of the teachers was a real stickler for keeping your back straight. Well, unfortunately, I didn't really listen to him because now I have terrible back problems. And I think that's probably true with a lot of drummers, because it's very difficult to have a good posture and play the drums, right? Especially if you're playing jazz or you want to get into something, you're bent over all the time. It's not good. And piano, I just could never do. I could never really sit up straight and play. So I should have listened to him though, because I really have severe problems now. I even have to walk with a walker.
Oh, really? Wow.
Yeah, I never thought that that would happen. It came on about 2 years ago, and I've always had back problems with a lot of pain in my back. But you know, I'm 84, and I suppose everybody, by the time they reach my age, has a certain amount of osteoarthritis in their back, and it's hit me pretty badly. So I kind of walk really like an old man. I am an
Really?
old.
Wow, that's a
Wait
shame.
a minute. Wait a minute. I am an old man. I mean, uh, but I do see a lot of. It's funny how if you drive a certain kind of a car, like a Ford, um, you'll find that you're noticing a lot of Fords on the road, you know. And I just got this walker maybe well some months ago, and I never noticed people with well, I noticed them. I would get out of their way, but I never thought about it. But now I notice that a lot of people have walkers. You know, as I walk along, a lot of people walking with canes, walking with walkers, that I never really thought of before. Yeah,
You
right.
give them a wave. Are you like,
Yeah.
I
I
do.
see you.
I give them away. I say my walker is better than your walker.
The teacher, Morris Marks, was that the
Oh,
name?
Maurice Mark.
Yeah,
Maurice.
Maurice Mark. Uh,
Yeah.
was he a huge influence on you as a teacher as well?
Uh, mm, no, I don't think that. No, the truth is, I don't think that most of the teachers were an influence on me as a teacher. They could have been more of an influence as a player, but not as a teacher. My influence really came from my experience teaching kids themselves as I was, and as I started doing that, I realized that a lot of books were missing. There were a lot of problems that kids had, and there were no books to address it. I would have to simply write out things for individual kids, just the way most teachers probably do. I would always have someone get a manuscript book as well as the books that I used, and I started. That's how I started developing a whole system of writing. So I don't. I think that the influence that came was an influence from my experience with students.
Who were your influences in terms of drummers who you liked and that you admired?
Well, you know, all the great ones. You know, I mean, everyone at the time, especially, you know, everyone loved Buddy Rich, right? I mean, Buddy Rich, I mean, he was sensational, wasn't he? But
Yeah.
then Louis Bellson, there's a lot of famous names from the past who were my influence. Right. I mean, so many. And actually, I could say Ed Shaughnessey. I respected him terrifically. He never really had the name that Louis Bellson had or what have you, but he was a sensational player, but quite an all-around musician as well as, and so was Belson, of course. Um, and so many names, whoever I heard had an influence on me. Joe, what was it? Well, certainly Morello, when I went to Morello, he had a certain influence. Yes, everyone has a little bit of an influence on your playing that you go to. If they're really these sensational players, they're going to have somewhat of an influence. I must say one thing that when I did go to Morello, he had a certain way of holding his sticks, you know, and he was showing me. And it's not the way I held my sticks. Uh, but I had a very good technique when I saw him. And you know, sometimes teachers, I've noticed that certain teachers, you know, they're so stuck in the way they teach and want someone to play that sometimes the way they want someone to hold sticks is not appropriate for everyone. I've seen many people play in ways that were just so unorthodox in a sense. I've had students come in because at a certain point I started only teaching professionals, and they came in and I couldn't believe how they were holding sticks, but they were terrific. And their technique could have been terrific. So it just shows that, there's no one particular way to hold a stick.
True.
Eventually, people, I guess, fall into ways that are comfortable for them in particular.
Let's jump ahead a little bit in time and let me ask you, when did you move to the UK and why, if we may know?
Yes, okay. Well, moved to the UK. I'm a New Yorker through and through. I mean, up until the age of 39, I had been teaching in school for 15 years by then. My pension was vested, and I always wanted to come to Europe. I had never really traveled other than going some places with a band on the road. So Europe was a place that I always thought about, sounded exciting. And I wanted, my books were starting to get used in Europe, especially England. So I wanted, I wanted to leave school at 15 years. I decided, my pension was vested. I decided, okay, let me travel. There were a couple of other things also. My apartment, the lease was up. I'd have to renew my lease for another 3 years. I didn't want to do that. I didn't want to be teaching anymore in school. I didn't want to renew the lease. And so I thought, well, this is a good time to travel to Europe and promote my books throughout Europe. So that was the idea. I was going to, and also my son was going into university. So he, I had a choice of he was going to go to California, to Berkeley at the time. So although he had switched and he went to a different school, but I had an option of either following him to California, which I had never been to either, or to go to Europe. So he went off on his own to school, and I went to England to promote my books. I thought I would stay in England for a couple of months, see various teachers, see the country, and then go to France and do the same thing in each of the countries. Well, when I got here, I went to a company called EMI, which is at the time a very large music company. I don't even know if they're still in existence, but when I talked to them about my books, they said, look, they had salesmen all over Europe. I didn't have to go travel anywhere, just give the books to them and they would do it. Well, I was very happy with that. First of all, when I came, I loved London. That's first of all. And second of all, I really only spoke two languages, which was American and Brooklyn. I didn't speak a word of real English, and I certainly didn't speak French or anything. I had Spanish in school, so I knew a little Spanish, but not really enough to be fluent in it. Anyway, I was happy. So I hung around London, and I found within a couple of months, I was besieged with students because it got around that I was in town, and I started teaching privately, which I never intended to do, but I wound up with really 30, 40 students
Wow.
a week. I couldn't believe it. So I became very busy here, and I really liked living here. It's a wonderful city, and especially if you want to travel. I mean, as a jumping off place, from New York, if you want to go anywhere in Europe, you have to get on a plane for 7 hours or so and more. And and I hate flying. I just hate flying. And from here, you could get anywhere actually in Europe, almost anywhere by train. So anyway, I loved it here. And then in time, I finally met this English rose, as they would say, when I was 50. That was 34 years ago. And we got married, and I've been married ever since. This lovely, lovely woman, one of the rare earth creatures, there's one earth angel, I would say. So I'm very happy,
Cool.
except with my back.
Well, I don't think it's her fault.
No, that's pretty funny. Not now, anyway.
Yes.
That is so cute, by the way. I love it. You've written so many books. I have to admit, I don't know what your first book was and what the process was like for you from the idea to getting it published. You've said you had a lot of rejection, but what was the first book that you thought, I'm gonna do it?
Well, wait a minute. One of the, to begin with, I didn't get rejections on my drum books because I never sent my drum books anywhere. I published them myself. One of the teachers that I had in New York was Sam Ulano. And at the time, he was someone who published, he published his own books. He had dozens of books published. Anyway, I went to him, and when I was taking lessons from him, I brought in this manuscript, my first manuscript. I said, Sam, I wrote this thing. And he thought it was terrific. I said, well, who do you think I should send it to? He said, well, don't send it to anybody. Just do it yourself. It's very simple. Get someone to just go to a printer, have it printed up, and I'll give you some names of some teachers, and you can give them a call and tell them that I told you to call. That's how it really all began. So I said, okay, it wasn't very expensive to print up some books. I actually, Sam used to do all his books by hand, but I didn't want to do that. I went to a music typist, and I gave them the manuscript. They typed it up. I did all the editing on the thing. Then I contacted a graphic artist to do a cover. And the first book that I did was a jazz book called Phrasing Drum Solos, which was a very unusual book at the time. There was nothing around like that. It's where you would take 4-bar solos in 4/4 time, but the phrasing of the solo was either in 3/4, 5/4, or 7/4, which went across the bar line. And there was nothing that showed anything like that. And so I would say that I called up some teachers and said, hi, Sam told me to give you a call. He thought you might like the book I'm using. And I said, I'd like to send you a sample copy. I sent them a sample copy. I did this. Sam gave me about 12 names. And from those names, they gave me other names. So it started building that way. And Sam used the book at the time with a lot of students. He bought my books. I went around to a couple of distributors in New York, and I was just a kid. You have to remember, we're talking about, let me see, I was no more than 16 or 17 years old. Yeah,
amazing.
And they said, all right, kid, we'll take a couple of books, and I went to all the drum stores in New York City, and yes, they see a kid coming in, and I had this book with her. It was a professional looking book. It was a finished book, a product. And so, yes, all right, we'll put it on the rack. I'll take 2 copies. That was encouragement, believe me. And I started getting mail. I would attack my mailbox from the teachers that I contacted. They would say, I'd like to have 3 books or what have you. Well, I couldn't believe it. Every time I came home from school, I would attack my mailbox, and I was teaching privately at the time. So I'd be teaching privately, and at the time I was at university, going to school, playing gigs on the weekend, and publishing these books. I was really working 8 days a week, 24 hours, just around the clock. So as I look back now, I don't know how I did it, but I did it. Anyway, that was the start. And what happened after that was I realized that if I wanted to sell books, I tried to put a couple of adverts into magazines. That was useless. I realized people don't buy books sight unseen. Some do, I mean, but if the cost of the advert was $200, I never made my money back. I made $10 or something. I always lost a lot of money when I put an advert in. So I realized, no, nobody's going to buy it sight unseen. And who's going to buy it? A teacher. How does a book sell? A book sells if a teacher tells a student, buy this book for your lesson. A kid doesn't know what to buy. So I decided I was going to bypass everybody and just go directly to teachers. So I went for about 4 months. I went to the New York Library after school, whenever I could. And at the time, they only had the yellow pages. You know, now everything is on film or what have you. They didn't have anything like that at the time. But I sat in the New York Public Library, a great library. I mean, an amazing library. I took they had every single yellow pages of every single city and town in the United States, hundreds of them. So I sat down, I opened up to music, to the areas of music, and I saw the names of people who were teaching privately. And I gathered hundreds and hundreds of names. And every night I would come home, and for 1 hour, I would make telephone calls to these teachers and say, hello, you know, I write these books. I'd like to send you a sample copy. And gradually over the years, I developed a list of a couple of thousand teachers. And when I'd write a new book, I simply sent them a sample copy. That was my advertising. I didn't do any other advertising. And if I sent to 2,000 people, then I've always found that at least 5 to 10% would buy the book. So maybe out of 2,000 teachers, 100 to 200 would start using them, and they would start sending to me for orders. And that's how it all began and started building from there.
Excellent. So, hello, people watching this. Right here, there's a very good business recipe.
Yeah, well, today there's such a glut of books on the market that it's very difficult for anybody to go at it themselves. And really, it's hard to get something published through a publisher. And again, what can they do? They can just really, if they don't have a list of teachers, and teachers already have, most teachers, you know, have the books that they're going to use. We're all kind of creatures of habit. So teachers tend to use the books that they were taught out of, what have you. So actually, I have so many books, I've kind of shot myself in the foot, because I have, over the years, I've written about 150 drum books, but about 50 to 60 have gone out of print. Now, I don't know, there's about 80 books that's on my catalog. And who can use 80 books? Nobody's going to use 80 books, are they? Except me. No, I wouldn't have anybody buy 80 books. But I think it's very difficult for anybody now trying to get a book off the ground. Very hard. The most they could do is, you know, I guess, go on to Facebook or, sell it through the internet. And once again, there's not that many people that are going to send for books sight unseen. Of course, if you're a famous name, player, not a famous drum book writer, if you're a player, I mean, somebody like Steve Gadd puts out a book, and I'm sure that he's going to be able to sell that book no matter what.
Yeah.
So anyway, that's the story of how it all started.
You said you've written 150 odd?
About that, yeah. Don't
Is
ask
it
me. I don't even remember them.
is it the same process each time you write it?
I guess I've developed a process. It's hard to explain to somebody else the creative process in your mind. You ask any writer, how do they do that? Well, I don't know. I get an idea for a book and I start writing it down. And I think that my great skill in writing, if I have a skill, is my organizational ability. I have an ability to put things down in a very clear, organized manner. I think so anyway. And I guess I do have a process where, well, I write whatever comes into my mind in an organized way. I write as much material as possible. And then if a book is, let's say 32 pages, I've probably written 150 pages of material. And then I start whittling it down to where it's more organized and condensed so that it makes sense without just going all over the place. But it's really hard to explain. It's not like a step-by-step procedure that I have, and I know each book is slightly different.
What usually prompts you to write a book?
Just an idea that comes into my head. When I was younger days, what prompted me, I suppose, was the fact that students had problems with certain things, and there were no books to cover that. And so that's what prompted me. Now that's not the case. Now I get an idea comes into my mind. But you see, I'm writing all the time. I don't just write books. I write music books, but I also write articles, and I write short stories, and I write children's books, like I say, and the drum books. So I mean, I'm writing in a lot of different areas. So I guess my brain is constantly turning over that way, because that's what I've been doing for so many years. Right. So
Are you
that
working
answers
on
that
anything at the
question.
moment?
So yes, the book that I'm working on now, I always say this is going to be my last book. I said that many years ago, but I have a feeling this is my last book. It's called Wham Bam Flam. And it's an in-depth study of flams, drags, and roughs. But it's just called Wham Bam Flam. The flams take up most of it, and it's really quite an involved book. And I'm in the middle of writing it now. In
Cool.
fact, when I hang up, I'm going to be back to my writing of the book.
All right.
Another
Wham Bam Flam page.
I
Yeah.
love that title. I will have a copy, please. I will buy it happily because I love flams anyway. And I
Yeah.
was using your roll book the other day, actually.
Which one?
The rolls, the yellow one,
Yes,
orange.
it's orange, I think.
Yeah, I just started it. Love it. It's great.
Yeah, yeah.
Really, really nice. Your work ethic seems to be quite intense. Have you always been like that way, and why? And clearly you're like it now, right? Have you always been busy?
Yeah, I think it's true. Probably the reason is that I don't like doing nothing. I mean, yeah, I look, I like traveling and seeing things, but when I'm home, I mean, what is there at this point? Well, right along. I mean, once I didn't teach in school, what am I doing at home? You don't want to watch daytime TV, let me tell you. That would turn your mind to putty. So, I mean, yeah, I have ideas, and I want to carry them through. I believe in myself, and I think that what I do is worthwhile. Will they be put in the time capsule for the generations to come and hundreds of years from now when they open the time capsule? I doubt it. But for now, it's what I do. It's my work. Right.
No, it's awesome. In fact, I heard about you, I think, from Mike Johnston, and about it's that red, is it basic rock drumming?
Oh, basic drumming, yes.
The thick red book.
Yes.
And it's so good. It is. I feel like it's such a classic book that people need.
Yes, it's probably one of my two very best sellers. And it's hit a chord with a lot of teachers because it's a one-stop book. It's basic drumming, and it has everything in there. It has everything you need to know about basically rock and jazz and all the basic beats to play with the band and rolls and basic reading and technique things. Just it's sectioned off and has everything. You know, it has marching cadences. And so I would say that, yes, it's a one-stop book. Funnily enough, it may be my best-selling book, but it's not a book that I would use personally with students. I like to use books on individual topics. I mean, if you go to high school, let's say, you don't have one book for science and math and everything else. You get, you're told to get a science book, you're told to get a math book, and a book in each of the subjects, a language or what have you. So I like the idea of having, I mean, I have a system, in fact, a series of systems worked out, and my books represent a system of teaching. And unless you've studied with me, you don't really know my books as a system. Most people just know my books as individual titles, but it's a very tight system. And the core books that I would use, I mean, I use a jazz book, a rock book, a reading book, and a technique book. Those are the 4 books that I would use as core books. And then I would add to them depending on the student. I mean, I have books that are classically oriented or what have you. I've published for other people as well, especially a teacher named Garwood Whaley. He's a classical player, and he came to me, saw me, and brought up a particular book that I thought was terrific called Fundamental Studies for Snare Drum. And as an orchestral player, he had a different take on, I mean, I'm an orchestral player also, but that's not what my experience is. And my experience is playing with bands, whether it be jazz, rock, and show drumming, playing shows. I played in my school orchestras and what have you. So, I mean, of course, I'm very aware of it. And when I studied classically also. So, but my books probably reflect more band playing than orchestral playing, although that's not true of a couple of them. In any case, I thought the book was terrific, and I took it on. And over time, I published, I think it was 8 of his books, something like that. And he's done very well for me. And his books became quite well known. He became the president of the Percussive Arts Society at one time, Garwood Whaley. I think a lot of people know his name, especially in the classical field. He's known all over the place, I'm sure, and his books are known. And then he went off and opened up his own company, Meredith Music. And in the end, I gave him back 3 of his books that I published. I now publish 5 of his books. I still publish 5 of his books, but he developed his own catalog, which is a very good catalog of books. Actually, I would say excellent. And so good luck to him. I wish him the best.
Yeah, excellent. Do you find that the best uh, selling book, which area in drumming are the best selling books? Like rock drumming or technique or jazz drumming?
Yeah. Uh, f- Believe me, it's rock drumming all the way. I would, I'll tell you that very, very few teachers have their books that they use and they write out a lot of stuff. I can't say that. I mean, jazz books have a certain interest to a a section, but rock books far and away outsell everything else as far as I can see, except a basic book on drumming, you know. But there are so many basic books. Of course, I have my basic book, Basic Drumming, and that's one. And I have a couple of other ones that are not as, I have one called Basic Drumming Made Easy, which is really basic drumming, but whittled down so that it's not as extensive as that. Um, yes. Next question, please.
Do you still practice?
Oh, do I still practice? When I was teaching, I practiced along with them. Right now, I can't even hold a stick because I have problems with my hands. I have arthritis in my hands. I can't close. I was telling Felipe, I can't close my hands. I can't really I can't make a fist. So I really can't hold sticks anymore. I teach, but when I teach, it's only professionals who come to me with particular problems, and it's pedagogical. I just we discuss any problems they may have, and yes, it's really maybe we talk about conceptually playing or what books they might be able to use to help them or what have you. But I cannot demonstrate anymore because I can't hold the sticks. And of course, my my great love is piano. If you want to know the truth, you would think that
Okay,
it's
wow.
yeah, you would think that
Revelation time.
you would think that it's drums, but all that noise. Right. Uh, you know, I once had when I was a kid and got my set, and then I started having a band come over, a group come over and practice in my house. Uh, well, I was in an apartment house, and of course, when did we practice on a Sunday? Well, you know, people in the house, that's when they would like to sleep. They don't want to hear drums banging away. You know, I wasn't very popular in the building. Anyway, I've had the police when I was younger, really, when I was a kid, I had the police called a couple of times. Now, one of the policemen that came over, you know, rang the bell and said that there was a complaint, there was too much noise. Now, this was on a Sunday around, I usually started about 1 o'clock and went on till 5. Yes. Anyway, he said there's been a complaint about the noise, and he says, well, what's going on? And I invited him in, and he came in, and funnily enough, he had studied drums when he was a kid.
Oh, cool.
He, you know, he was sympathetic, but he said, look, it's Sunday. You are allowed to practice. You know, it's not as if you're doing this at 3 a.m. You are allowed to make noise like that, but if you could keep it down as much as possible, I think everybody in the building would appreciate it. It was very nice, yes. After that, what I did was I had my mother buy very heavy drapes that we really put around the room, kind of, and thick carpeting. She did that, and that absorbed a lot of the sound. But gradually, as the band got better and the sound got better, the people kind of enjoyed listening to the music. They
There were
wanted me
less
to open
complaints.
the windows. Yeah.
What are you most proud of?
Oh, What book am I most proud of? Is that what you're asking me?
Yeah, or
Oh,
achievement in life. You
oh,
can say multiple things
Yeah, it
if
doesn't
you
need to be
want.
one. Yeah.
what am I most proud of? Staying alive until 84. Um, what am I most proud of? Well, if you talk about the books, I mean, people have asked me which is my favorite book, but that's like asking somebody who has 10 children, oh, who's your favorite child?
It's
That's,
just like asking somebody who has 150 children, which is their favorite.
yes, well, each book is my child in a sense, in one sense, my creation. So no, I would say that the very first book, Phrasing Drum Solos, which was very unique. I'm most proud of the ones that I have two kinds of books. I believe that a book, if you're going to write a book, you either write something that's different from other things or an improvement on what's been done. That's the two reasons. So many people write books that have basically been done. You know, the same kinds of material is in it, and there's no improvement on previous books. So they just want to put a book out. Okay, fair enough. But if we're talking about a reason to write a book, you know, is it needed because there's nothing like it? Or is it a vast improvement on what's been done before? So I suppose I'd like to think that my two books fall into those categories. So I'm kind of proud of all of them, but especially the ones that are totally unique where nothing like that has been done before. And so I guess I'm most proud of things like that. And there's a whole slew of those books, Drumming Outside the Box, um, really new directions in rock and jazz drumming. These are things that you won't see in any other book. Phrasing drum solos. There's a new book that's going to be coming out anytime now. It's at the printer. It's called Rock and Jazz Drumming in 3/4 Time and Beyond. And this really points out that 3/4 is the key to playing in all odd time signatures in quarter time. Because if you think about it, take 5/4, for instance. 5/4 is usually phrased 3/4 and 2 plus 2/4, or 2/4 plus 3/4, or 7/4 time is phrased 3/4 plus 2/4 plus 2/4, or 2/4 plus 3/4. In each of the odd time signatures, 7/4 time, 5/4 time, 11/4 time, 15/4 time, they're all multiples. You're always going to find a 3/4 in there. And the same thing is also true when it comes to eighth time. 3/8, being able to play 3/8 well is the key to being able to play in all the odd time signatures in eighth time. So this book points that out and goes into depth about it. There's nothing else around like it. That's going to be out within a couple of weeks. And so books like that where there's nothing else around, and I would say there's nothing else around like that, and teaches something new that perhaps people didn't know before. It moves the instrument ahead, and those are the ones that I'm most proud of. If you ask me now, you were asking me some other thing. What am I proud of in life? Yes, staying alive. The books that are the most. Yes. What else am I most proud of? Well, just I'm proud that I'm living a happy life, and I'm proud of my children.
Cool.
My children. I have two children. I have my son, who's a lawyer in California. He's a sensational lawyer. And my daughter she was a scientist, she knocked out a gene dealing with the olfactory senses, the nose, and wrote a paper that was quite unique. Then she got married, had a couple of kids, my grandkids, and she's become a writer herself.
Cool.
And published a book. I mean, something. What was the name of it? The DNA of You and Me.
Nice.
Remember that, folks? The DNA of You and Me was published by one of the giant companies, I mean, and it was unbelievable how much money they gave her as an advance. I couldn't believe it.
Were you
So,
jealous?
I mean, I was jealous. Anyway, so she's become a writer, and so I'm very proud of my two children, and I'm very proud of my grandchildren. I have two grandchildren by my son, who's in California, and they've graduated university, and one is a teacher, and the other one, I think, it has to do with is a speech as a speech therapist. And then my other two grandchildren are a boy and a girl from my daughter, who lives in Great Neck, Long Island in New York. They're first going into university this year.
Cool.
So yeah, so you could say, what am I most proud of? I'm most proud of my offspring.
Yeah, as you should. Have you been to California now? Because in the beginning of the conversation you said you had never been to California.
Yeah, I said, California, here I come. I did go there. You wouldn't want to sit next to me on a plane.
Okay.
I mean, when there's turbulence, you'll hear words out of me that are not in any dictionary that you've ever read. I can't stand it. I cannot take the turbulence. I mean, I don't cry. Inside, I do. Really, I don't want to step on a plane. And going to California, you have to go over the Rockies. And I've noticed that when you go over mountainous areas, it's not a happy time for me. So I don't want to be up there. I don't want to be anyway. When I step in that plane, you just feel that you lose all control. You have no control of what's going to happen. Okay, I always hear, like, I remember my brother saying, oh, there's more accident. My brother's a pilot, incidentally. He was a pilot. He had his own plane. And he's 90 years old, my brother. And anyway, he used to say, there's more accidents with cars than there are with planes. Safer in a plane than a car. Yeah. That's what you hear all the time. I still rather be in an accident in a car than in an accident in a plane. I'm going to tell you that. Yeah, I just that feeling of once that plane takes off the ground and there's nothing under you, no control.
Yeah.
I suppose somebody wants. Does that mean I'm somebody that wants to be in control?
Yes.
With something, yes.
Nothing wrong with that. If you could teach a drummer one thing only, what would it be?
If I could teach a drummer one thing only, I would teach him to go into another business.
No.
I would teach him to take up piano, give up drums.
Go into business.
I could teach him one thing. I mean, are you talking teach him one thing in drumming?
Yeah.
Yeah, one concept,
Well, more important than anything else is keeping good time and with the right time feel. If you're playing in jazz or rock or whatever, time feels a difference. So what I would say is keep good time with the right time feel and play for the band, not for yourself.
Excellent.
Be part of the band and stay relaxed, because as soon as you tighten up, nothing is going to swing. You have to play in a relaxed manner.
Thank you for coming on and for your wisdom and for sharing everything. Appreciate it.